We are continuing with a lecture about this fundamentals of organizing. We started this lecture in the last physical class, and we are going to discuss further about this lecture, this particular topic of fundamentals of organizing. As you know that the organizing is one of the main functions of manager, along with the planning, leading, and controlling. And in the organizing of the businesses and the organizations, the people who organize, they create kind of a structure of the organization. They have a responsibility of dividing up the work, arranging the resources, and coordinate different activities of different groups, different members, because like you have a different mix of inputs and different mix of uh, factors and systems work together to get anything done or to produce anything. So the organizers actually have a responsibility of dividing the work and arranging all kind of resources and coordinating activities. Like if the activities are not coordinated between the departments can go very much like in array or in misdirections. Everybody might have a different objective in the organization. The organizers try to make this objective one. They try to coordinate between the marketing, finance, manufacturing, and all other kind of the departments and different kind of structures. Similarly, the planning, leading, and controlling are also the very important functions of the organizations. So any organization that is working may have formal structures or informal structures. These formal structures may be like the structures in which you have a specific division of the work, specific hierarchies, and a specific kind of a structure and division, and like you have got you exactly know who is responsible for what, and there is always a relationship between the superiors, inferiors, and something like that. And similarly, you might also have got informal structures, and some of the organizations do well under this informal structures, but some of the organizations cannot work in the informal structure. Like say, for example, when we conduct classes, the classes can be conducted in both ways, a formal way and an informal way. In both of the instances, what happens, the objective is to learn. So when you have a formal structure, you might have got a exactly division of the things, and you basically have a specific kind of relationship between the students and the teachers. But you can also learn in the informal way. Like say, for example, if we conduct some kind of informal discussions where you can talk about your the things basically very freely, and you basically don't have got any fear of superior, inferior. And if you are asked to give any idea, or you are asked to just give any kind of a concept, you are basically free to give. If this some of the times this informal structures work very well, especially the modern organizations like social networking, and similarly the technology based organizations, they basically work well when they actually have got informal structures. So we were talking about the advantages, maybe many for the informal sectors, informal structures, but there could also be some disadvantages. And we also saw that there can be departmentalization in the organizations, and this departmentalization can happen on the basis of functions that department performs, on the basis of divisions. Like say, for example, you might have got certain divisions where you can say, for example, some Karachi division, you can go to the, say for example, SSGC office, Karachi division, or Lahore division, or say for example Islamabad division. So when you go to the division, you get everything done there. There is not only the one function that division performs, the division performs all functions. The division works as a kind of a mini organization. But you can also have got the organization that may coincide with both the functional and divisional structures. So we were discussing about these functional structures. The functional structures are based on the basis of functions. Like say, for example, you might have departmentalization on the basis of function. Like, say, for example, the function of marketing, the function of finance, the function of production, and the function of human resources. They are all basically, like providing different functions. This particular department is uh, recruiting people, training people, and giving them tasks and trying to like deciding their salaries and doing everything. Production department does the production. Finance department controls the finances of the organization, and marketing department make people aware about the products. Say for example, they actually launch their products, they make their products uh, known to the people. And there are a lot of things, like say for example, in the branch network you can have got loans manager, investment managers, operations managers, you can have got trusts. So there are different kinds of say for example, the organizations where you can have got a different kind of uh, functional divisions kind of a thing, the functional distribution or departmentalization. Like, say, for example, in the community hospital, there can be the medical officer, the nursing officer, the clinics, and the patient services. So you should be knowing about them. So the functional structures are important in the sense because they create economies of scale. Uh, like economies of scale are generally attained when you have got expertise of doing something. अगर आप कोई काम कर रहे हो, and with the passage of time you get expertise of doing that thing, and you do more quickly than other people, you do more efficiently than other people. So you are generally able to get economies of scale. Like, say for example, a tailor who actually knows how to stitch clothes, and he is very good at doing such things. So you can basically, like say for example, if you have dividing the stitching work in different kind of tasks, like depending on their functions, and you can basically create expertise. Like, say for example, a person, he is fastening he's stitching the collar, the other person is stitching the sleeves, the other person is stitching something other, some other part of the shirts or the clothes. So in that way you can always achieve kind of expertise. The people get expert in making or doing things, basically what they are doing for so long. So they basically are able to work more efficiently, more in cost effectively, and they can create more output at lesser cost and the lesser time. So when you have got a functional structures, like say for example, the marketing people, if the marketing people knows the marketing very well. Similarly, the finance people know the finance, the issues related to finance. The production people know the issues related to the production. So in that way, whenever you have got a situation when you basically are producing things, these people basically are able to create more value. So the economies of scale, high quality technical problem solving, they become so skilled to solve all the problems. They have got in-depth training and skill development, clear career paths within the functions they have got. All right. There could be some kind of disadvantages associated with this functional, uh, this departmentalization. uh, it is sometimes say for example, अगर आप घर बनवा रहे हो तो घर बनवाने में मिसाल के तौर पर अगर आपका जब आप जिस आदमी जो कि आपके जो आपके ब्रिक्स को जो चुनवाई करवाते हैं, आप ब्रिक्स आप करवाते हैं, स्ट्रक्चर्स बनवाते हैं, अगर वो मिसाल के तौर पर बना के चला जाता है और कोई दूसरा आता है और वो दूसरा उस पर प्लास्टर करने की कोशिश करता है, और अगर वो प्लास्टर सही नहीं कर रहा है तो ही मेक्स रिस्पॉन्सिबल टू द अदर पर्सन. अब जब जो प्लास्टर करने वाला है, उसके बाद जब कलर करने वाला आता है, जब वो देखता है कि आप कहते हैं उससे कलर सही नहीं है, वो कहता है आपसे प्लास्टर सही नहीं है क्योंकि प्लास्टर जो है वो किसी और ने किया है और वी डोंट नो बेसिकली हाउ they actually have done it and the plaster was not good, so actually that's why the color is not looking very good. So there can be a very difficult kind of a situation in pinpointing responsibilities, and that becomes so difficult for you to exactly identify that where problem has come, because different people are doing different things according to their functions. Gradually, like say for example, when the product comes out in the market, if there is some problem with that product, or if there is some problem with the procedure that you have followed, there could be a possibility that you are not able to exactly point out that who was responsible for that all mess up. Another problem that can be very much common, or that is very much common as far as this functional departmentalizations is concerned, is related to the functional chimneys problem. And the functional chimneys problem is a lack of communication and coordination across functions. Generally, the marketing people don't want to talk to the finance people. The finance people are not willing to talk to the production people. The production people are not interested in having any kind of relationship with human resources department, and so forth. Like, there are so many people, like, the different kind of the departments who are performing different functions do not take into confidence the other departments, and they don't basically, like, coordinate with each other. This is called functional chimneys problem. So it is a very common problem, like, when you have a different kind of functions and you are not coordinating, you are not communicating between each other, you are not actually, you are working as an in isolation. So it could be a possibility, like, say for example, आपको देखें, अगर आप अपनी स्टेट को देखें, तो स्टेट के 3 ऑर्गन्स हैं. एक आपके पास जो है वो लेजिस्लेचर है, एक आपके पास जो है वो जुडिशरी है, एक आपके पास जो है वो एग्जीक्यूटिव है. Now these 3 different kinds of organs of the state are performing different tasks. Like, say for example, the legislature does the legislation, they make laws, they create, interpret, they actually make laws for the betterment of the people and the just betterment of the country. The judiciary interpret the laws. The function of the judiciary is of the interpretation of the law. जिस तरह आजकल आप देखें कि बहुत ज़्यादा ये डिस्कशन चल रही है, टीवी पर आप लोग देखते होंगे कि जो आर्टिकल 63A है, that actually is the Supreme Court is being asked from the government president basically to interpret that 63A. What is the 63A? कि if a person defects, अगर एक शख्स है जो किसी एक पार्टी से elect होकर आता है, and if he votes against the directives of the party, that basically is called a defection law, defection section, and that defection section is a 63A. What the judiciary is doing for that, the judiciary is trying to interpret that this section for the government. Like, say for example, for how long the person will not be able to take participation into the election. So now what actually I'm trying to tell you here is, like, if these 3 functional organs of the state do not coincide or do not go together, and if there is a communication problem, like as we actually have seen during the time of Nawaz Sharif and during the other periods, like, these 3 functions were not coordinating with each other. Judiciary was going in separate direction, executive was going in the another direction, and executive was like going in some other kind of direction. So if there is a lack of communication and coordination across the functions, you might have got a mess up situation, and this messing up situation can be very dangerous for the country and similarly for the companies. Similarly, the sense of cooperation and common purpose breakdown. You are not working together, you are working like, in your own department. You only know, if you are a marketing person, only know about the marketing, you don't care about finance, marketing, or HRM, like, human resources management. So you can actually have got a problem of the breakdown of the sense of cooperation. Similarly, narrow view of performance objectives. You always have got a limited view of what is your performance there and how basically you are going to work out this. Excessive upward referral of division, like, you don't have got any bosses who can fix the problems related to kind of like, say for example, if there is some kind of human resource problem, you have to direct it to the human resource department. If there's a problem related to the marketing, you have to direct it to that. And similarly, if there are some other kind of administrative issues, you have to direct to the administrative departments. You cannot deal these all problems as in the capacity of as a functional manager or the head of the functional like department, which actually is based on the function, some particular function. Another kind of departmentalization is based on divisions. These divisions, as you can see, as the name suggests, the division means a kind of a complete mini organization. If you have got some division of a company existing somewhere in the country, that division performs all the functions. Like, say for example, if a company produces goods, a division also produces goods. If a company markets products, the division also markets products. If the company basically is having some kind of other objectives, the division also have got a complete or the same objective. But the scope of the division is generally smaller than the overall organization and then the other division. Like say, for example, you can have a division, Karachi division of some kind of a company. And in that division, you will find all the kind of people, like, you will find their managers, their general managers, their kind of a people, like, who can fix your problems. If you have got any problem related to the hierarchy, you can talk to the superiors that are present in your organization. So the divisional structures group together people who work on the same product or process, serve similar customers, and or are in the same or area or geographical region. Like as I was telling you, that when you have a division, you have a mini organization. Like say, for example, I was telling you or giving you an example of ICP of the Karachi University. ICP, or a kind of a centers that basically work in your uh, university. They basically are different kind of divisions, and these divisions have got their own heads, their own directors, their own finance divisions. They have got their own kind of structures in which they basically have got their own promotional rules. They have got all other kind of rules. So they basically are independent in their own, like, that's what basically is the idea here. So this is very common in complex organizations, the organizations that have got a lot of functions to perform, or which are basically very widely spread organizations. There, like you can find generally the divisional structures. But, like with this divisional structures, you can avoid the functional structures problem. And that is very, like, a healthy thing. Now, if you look at the a kind of a like, divisional structures based on product, geography, customer, and process. So your division can be a division where you have got like, you are producing some kind of a product, and like there could be a geographical location. Still, you are producing something, and you are basically, like, part of a mini division. And similarly, like there are some kind of customers divisions, like say, for example, customers or client services. You give some kind of services to far flung areas, like say, for example, अगर एक बैंक की ब्रांच हो, तो एक बैंक की जो ब्रांच है, उस ब्रांच में सारे काम हो रहे होते हैं, उनके पास अपने लोग भी होते हैं, उनके पास अपने मैनेजर्स भी होते हैं, उनके पास अपने जनरल मैनेजर्स भी होते हैं, general managers in the sense the branch managers. And they basically have got the all the functions they perform as an independent part of the organization. This actually division can also be based on the process. And like you can have got a different kind of the selling units of some kind of a company. Like say, for example, if there is an outlet, say for example Junaid Jamshed, and they have got, like, a branch working in some kind of a location, so they basically perform all the functions, all the process of that particular shop or that particular company. What are the advantages of the divisional structures? Again, by the divisional structures, we mean you are dividing your organizations into different divisions. Every division stands on its own. Every division has got its own kind of structure, own kind of objectives. Like, of course, the objectives are not different from the overall organization's objectives, but still they basically have got their different kind of objectives depending on that what basically you are expecting from them. So here, like in case of the uh, divisional structures, coordination can be improved. There can be a clear responsibilities of everything. A division is responsible for the losses in this particular Karachi, say for example. But like say for example, अगर functional division आपके functional departmentalization हो, और अगर आपका से आपकी जो है वो आपके profits कम होते हैं, तो it is very difficult to pinpoint who is responsible. Marketing वाले responsible थे, finance वाले responsible थे, या जो है वो production वाले responsible थे, कौन responsible था? Everybody shifts the responsibility on others. But here, when the division is working, it is controlling everything, and it is basically becoming like, it's a kind of a mini organization. So it's always very easy for you to identify the responsibility of the divisions, basically in having or not having met their targets. Expertise focused on specific customers, products, and regions. So you can actually have got specific focus on customers, products, or regions, which actually can obviously enhance your productivity and can basically become a lot more productive for you. Okay. So it's very easy to restructure them. Like, changing the structure is easy if you have got this particular kind of a structure, divisions of I'm sorry, the departmentalization. What can be the potential disadvantages of divisional structures? There could be duplications of resources and efforts across divisions. Every division requires separate resources. Every division requires separate plans. Every resources different require all the things separately. इस तरह मिसाल के तौर पर इस वक्त जो है वो पूरी दुनिया में पहले हमारे पास एक्सटेंडेड फैमिलीज होती थी, अब हमारे पास जो है वो न्यूक्लियर फैमिलीज हैं। न्यूक्लियर फैमिलीज का मतलब यह है कि आप अपने बीवी बच्चों के साथ रहें, आप अपने माँ बाप के साथ ना रहें, आप अपने चाचा चाची के साथ ना रहें, दादा दादी के साथ ना रहें, आप एक एक्सटेंडेड फैमिली की बजाय एक आप अपनी जो है वो सेपरेट फैमिली आप स्ट्रक्चर बनाते हैं, जो कि सेपरेट घर में आप और आपके जो है फैमिली रहती है, और अगर खातून है तो उनके हस्बैंड, और हस्बैंड अगर मर्द है तो उनकी वाइफ और बच्चे। तो दैट बेसिकली, बट लाइक व्हेन यू हैव गॉट दिस काइंड ऑफ स्ट्रक्चर, ये जो इन्फ्लेशन हमारे ममालिक में हो रहा है, इस इन्फ्लेशन में इसका रोल भी बहुत ज़्यादा है। क्योंकि प्रॉब्लम बेसिकली हमारे साथ ये होता है कि जब हम डुप्लीकेशन होती है हर चीज़ की, हर घर के लिए अलग रिक्वायरमेंट्स हैं, हर घर के लिए अलग मीटर है, हर घर के लिए अलग जो है वो रिक्वायरमेंट्स हैं रिसोर्सेज की, हर घर का अलग रेंट है, हर घर का अलग जो है वो एक्सपेंसेस हैं। तो ये एक्चुअली देयर आर सो मेनी काइंड्स ऑफ थिंग्स दैट डुप्लीकेट। तो ये बड़ा एक जाहिर है कि एक डुप्लीकेशन ऑफ रिसोर्सेज होता है। और हमारे मुल्क में जो इन्फ्लेशन हो रहा है, अब आप एक सेपरेट घर चला रहे हैं, तो उस सेपरेट घर के लिए आपको हर चीज़ सेपरेटली चाहिए। वो बिजली का कनेक्शन हो, वो गैस का कनेक्शन हो, वो जो है वो वाटर कनेक्शन हो, वो टेलीफोन का कनेक्शन हो, किसी तरह के भी कनेक्शन हो, और खाने पीने की चीज़ें, और बेसिकली सब चीज़ें, यू नीड एवरीथिंग अ फ्रेश एंड न्यू एंड काइंड ऑफ अ थिंग बेसिकली दैट यू, and in that way there are so many duplications of the things. अब ये सही है गलत है, that is a different kind of story altogether. लेकिन ये कि this is how things basically generally happen here. Competition and poor coordination across divisions. Divisions एक दूसरे के साथ जाहिर है compete कर रही होती हैं। अगर कराची डिवीजन अच्छा काम कर रही है तो लाहौर डिवीजन feels threatened कि जाहिर है उनको questions होंगे, वो productivity नहीं दे पाएंगे, तो जाहिर है उनको उनसे सवाल होंगे। When the one division does well, the other division can basically be like can come at a kind of like threatening. They actually feel threatened. They generally don't actually like they feel intimidated. So it's a very important, like and there are generally the very much competitions takes place. Sometimes this competition is also good, because when these firms and these divisions compete with each other, they always have got a kind of like different. So they can actually like there are some competition can be beneficial, but of course sometimes this competition leads to kind of destructive as well, because people just to show their performance can go uh, out of the way, and they can basically cause losses to the organization. Emphasis on divisional goals at the expense of organizational goals. When you have a division, it has got its own objectives, it has got its own structure, and sometimes that jeopardizes the overall organization in a sense, because the overall organization's objectives are left behind, and you keep your divisional objectives in front of you. We have learned about that, the divisions can happen, or like, this departmentalization can happen on the basis of functions. And we just learned that this departmentalization of the organization, when you make a different departments, these departments can be based on divisions. And when you have a division, this division basically has got all the activities, like they perform all the activities, they're responsible for all the things basically that they do. So they basically are very much like different in a sense, basically because they are performing all the tasks. But in case of the functional departmentalization, every department performs a specific function, which has got its own pros and cons. Now we are going to talk about the market's matrix structure. And what it does, basically the matrix actually combines functional and divisional structures to gain advantages and minimize disadvantages of each. Like it's very important that, say for example, we have learned that in the functional departmentalization, the departmentalization based on functions actually has got its own advantages and disadvantages. Similarly, the organizations based on divisions have got their own advantages and disadvantages. But what the matrix structure does, it combines these two things together, and you have got always can take the advantage of both of the functions. Like say for example, the functional advantages and the functional departmentalization and the divisional departmentalization. Now, generally, they are used in market manufacturing, service industries, professional fields, non-profit organizations or sectors, and multinational corporations. So the matrix structures are also common. So the matrices are formed through the rows and columns. So you might have got some horizontal structures, and some have got, you might have got some vertical structures. So that basically can be a combination of both. So you are basically, like are having a kind of a a project together. Every division has got, can have a manufacturing project or engineering project, or they can have got separate manager for sales or marketing or something different. So that is what basically here you are coinciding. Like say for example here, you are actually like, these are the like if you look at these rows are actually defining different functions, sorry, these columns, and these rows are basically showing the different kind of divisions. So for every function you can have a project in which you are doing everything. So you can have got like, this matrix structures are good because they combine both functions and divisions. So but like they have got their disadvantages as well. So we shall see like, their advantages and disadvantages. There can be advantage of better cooperation across functions, improved decision making, increased flexibility in structuring, better customer services, better performance accountability, improved strategic management. So it is always very good to have a kind of this combined structures where you can have better cooperation, you can improve your decisions, you can increase flexibility in restructuring. There can be better customer services because of like, both functioning or both kind of departments are present at the same time, and better performance can be achieved in this. But like this particular structure has got its own problems as well. Like say for example, in this kind of a structure, you might have two bosses. Like say for example, you are part of a manufacturing department, but you are involved in a project of the organization that is basically covering some other kind of the functions as well. Now you have to answer both people, like the manager of the manufacturing and the manager of your project you're working with. Like say for example, here at Karachi University or at the educational institutions, we are a part of a department. Like say for example, I have a chairperson, I have a dean, I have a registrar, I have a vice chancellor. I have answerable to them. But if say for example some project of HEC comes, and that project is basically like covering everything, and they are helping us to improve some kind of function of the Karachi University. So I will, if I'm working with that project of HEC, so I will have to answer both. Like say for example, my HEC manager will be asking me to do this thing or that thing. If I don't do that, he will make myself accountable for everything. Similarly, the departmental chairperson or the departmental, the faculty dean or the university's registrar can actually also ask me that why you have been recruited and what are you doing and what are you not doing. So it's a very difficult, like, to survive in this kind of a system when you have two bosses. So two bosses means it's like having two wives. So it's not easy to live in this kind of a structure where you have got two bosses who are basically directing you to do this thing and that thing. तो जिस तरह मिसाल के तौर पर एक खातून जो होती है घर में, she has got two bosses, her husband, say for example, and her mother-in-law or father-in-law. So they basically she has to decide between the two bosses. Sometimes these two bosses interests can conflict. Like say for example, one boss wants you to do something else, the other boss wants you to do something else. So it can be a big problem for you in this kind of a structure. Two boss systems can create task confusions and conflict in work priorities. So what you should do first, whether I say for example I'm a part of HEC team, should I be keeping my departmental interests ahead of the HEC, or department HSC's interest ahead of the departments? So it's very difficult for me to decide about this. To whom I should give priority, it's very difficult for me to manage actually. Team meetings are time consuming. Like sometimes that exactly happens with us when we are working in the organizations. Like say for example, we are working under the chairpersons, but somehow we are also working into the HEC team. Say for example, I'm talking about the University of Karachi or any other kind of a university where you can have a different kind of projects sponsored by HEC or some other kind of the educational authority or someone else. So you can have a different meetings, you can have a different kinds of structures. So in that meetings you might be losing a lot of time, you might be having a lot of trouble in deciding that what actually a function requires what time. Team may develop groupitis, and this groupitis basically means confusing matrix behavior with group decision making. Like it's very difficult for exactly deciding anything particular, because when two bosses are there can always be a conflict, there can always be a a problem that is very difficult for the people to solve. Increased costs due to adding team leaders to the structures. So if you are adding more leaders, more people into the same structures, things can get a bit more messy in terms of the costs as well. Now another kind of these structures can be team structures. You work in teams. जिस तरह आप देखें कि आपको एक टास्क दिया जाता है from the class कि आपने काम करना है, you make a team, and these team structures are very common, and people do the teamworks, and there are teams basically working on this thing or that thing or that thing. And these team structures are generally extensively used, permanent and temporary teams to solve problems. They are used to solve problems and complete special projects and accomplish day-to-day tasks. Different teams are made for different kind of the objectives. Zubair, why are you writing this? These team structures are often extremely extensively used to solve permanent and temporary problems, and they are also used to complete some special tasks. Like say for example, government makes some teams to fix some kind of a situation, or make some kind of inquiry, or do something else, or something this or something that. So often use cross-functional teams composed of members from different functional departments, because like say for example, when one team works, they work on some kind of a project, so they need all expertise. Like say for example, if you are looking into some matter that has happened within your organization, now that team needs experts of every kind, so that they could exactly figure out that what actually happened during the incident. If some incident happens at some organization and you want to probe this incidents, that for that you make a team. That team can always require different people to actually fix or understand the situation, so that they could reach to some kind of conclusions, some kind of logical conclusions. So project teams are convened for a specific task or project, and disbanded once completed. Like say for example, when you complete the task, the teams are dissolved. So the teams do not remain there forever. The teams do not remain, or they don't basically a permanent part of your organization. The teams are made and broken depending on their task. If they perform tasks, as soon as they finish their task, they are basically asked to end this team. how a team structure uses cross-functional teams for improved lateral relationships. So there can be a plant managers, there could be some manufacturing managers, sales managers, and you can basically announce or you can give some kind of team assessment, team assignments. And these team assignments can be like, new product development team, valuing diversity task force. And there are different kind of task force, like say, for example, if some organization has got some trouble or some incident, they can create a team, and that team can help them figure out what exactly happened during that incident. The potential advantages of the team structures, I generally like this structure because the teams basically are generally good, because these teams are generally, have got their own kind of a um, efficiency, because the teams generally have got an objective, and team spirit can always help them reach their goals very effectively. This team structures eliminates difficulties with communication and decision making, because you're working as a team, you are a part of a group, and that group has got a common kind of tasks, and you are actually sitting together, you're working together. So that eliminates the difficulties with communication and decision making, eliminates barriers between operating departments. Like you can have got a team basically that comprises all the people from all the departments, so it can actually reduce the barriers between the department. जो उनके दरमियान hurdles होता है departments को combine करने के लिए, teams को departments को understand करने के लिए, improved morale, जो आपकी कंपनी का मोराल है वो उसको इम्प्रूव करता है. व्हेन यू वर्क इन अ टीम, generally you enjoy, you basically feel important, because you are a part of a group which is basically probing or trying to achieve something very important for the organization. So greater sense of involvement and identification when you work with teams that are working, like say for example, अगर हम एक कोई आपके पास कोई प्रोग्राम करवाना चाहते हैं, कोई कॉन्फ्रेंस कराना चाहते हैं, तो we can make teams of different people or different groups who will be actually responsible for different things. And that's what basically can be you might be involved into some kind of activity, and you can feel and you can basically give your maximum for that particular kind of a thing. Increased enthusiasm for work when you work with teams basically are got more involved into their works. They basically work more effectively and efficiently, and it also improves your quality and the speed of decision making, because in the team basically you have got easy access to your team leaders, and these team leaders can help you fix the problems. There are some potential disadvantages also associated with this team structures. The first of all, conflicting loyalties among members. The members cannot be have got the similar loyalties, similar आपके पास जाहिर है कि उनके साथ they can have got conflicting problems. Basically एक टीम जो है उसमें अगर कुछ लोग हैं जो कि वो अचीव नहीं करना चाहते, या बेसिकली उनके साथ कोई और उनके ऑब्जेक्टिव्स हैं, कोई वेस्टेड इंटरेस्ट हैं, so things can be problematic. Excessive time spent in meetings. These teams meet a lot, talk a lot, but generally do very less work, and that basically can be a potential disadvantage of any organization. Effective use of time depends on quality of interpersonal relations, group dynamics, and team management. So these all that is are conditional on the basis of that what kind of relationship these people have, how much their group is dynamic, and what kind of team management they have, and how they are managing their teams. We are going to talk about the network structures now. We have already talked about the team structures. We have talked about the functional or the divisional structures. Now, basically, we are going to talk about the network structures. Specifically after this pandemic, as you know that we are not connected physically right now, we are actually having a lecture through an online means, and that is a kind of a structure that is very common, where you use information technology to link with networks of outside suppliers and service contractors. in the modern world, especially specifically in the globalized world, where you have like a kind of relationship with all the countries, and you might be buying something sitting in Pakistan from the US, from UK, from some other kind of the countries. So you can actually have a situation where you basically cannot go physically to them. You don't have got any physical relationship with them, but you are connected through internet, you are connected through information technology, the IT. So you are basically connected with them. So you are basically your structure is based on just your connection through emails, through WhatsApps, through information, through telephones, and something like that. Own only core components and use strategic alliances or outsourcing to provide other components. देखिए आजकल पूरी दुनिया में एक बहुत बड़ी टर्म यूज होती है आउटसोर्सिंग. Outsourcing generally mean like giving this task to someone else to perform. Like बहुत सारी दुनिया में जो है वो आप प्रोडक्शन जो है वो जिस तरह कंपनी जो है वो यूके की है, लेकिन जो प्रोडक्शन हो रही होती है उसकी वो किसी और मुल्क में. गारमेंट्स की जो बहुत बड़ी बड़ी शॉप्स हैं यूके में, उनके जो क्लोथ्स बनते हैं वो बांग्लादेशी फैक्ट्रीज में बनते हैं. तो बांग्लादेश की जो फैक्ट्री है वो बेसिकली जाहिर है कि उनको वो आउटसोर्स कर देते हैं. अब प्रोडक्शन जो है वो यूके की कंपनी का है, अमेरिका की कंपनी का है, लेकिन वो आउटसोर्स कर देते हैं और वो दे देते हैं वो काम बांग्लादेश को, मलेशिया को, पाकिस्तान को या किसी और कंट्री को. तो दिस इज काइंड ऑफ अ थिंग, लेकिन बट यू कैन आर कनेक्टेड थ्रू द इंटरनेट टू देम. You are connected with the world with that. Like say for example, with this kind of structures, you might find the destinations where you get the best services for the least prices. So best services for the least prices you can always get through this. Network structures can have got the offshore manufacturing and packaging firms, part of the entry warehouse and distribution company, and furniture design studio kind of a thing. Technology connects everybody like together, and they are basically like connected through information technology, and they are basically like not having a kind of a physical structure. So potential advantages: firms can operate with fewer full-time employees and less complex internal systems. देखिए आपको पता है कि इस वक्त दुनिया में बड़ा एक अजीबोगरीब किस्म का बिजनेस स्टार्ट हुआ है. वो अजीबोगरीब इस सेंस में है कि आपकी लाखों रुपए का रिटर्न्स हैं, लाखों रुपए का आप काम कर रहे हैं, करोड़ों रुपए का आप काम कर रहे हैं, लेकिन आपकी अपनी इन्वेस्टमेंट जो है वो जीरो है. जीरो से मुराद ये है कि नेग्लिजिबल है एज कम्पेयर टू द ओवरऑल इन्वेस्टमेंट. जिस तरह मिसाल के तौर पर ऊबर है. ऊबर जो कंपनी चला रही है, उस ऊबर की अपनी कोई गाड़ी नहीं है, अपने कोई ड्राइवर नहीं है. दे रिलाई ऑन अदर पीपल. जिस तरह अगर आप आजकल टैक्सीज में ट्रैवल करते हैं तो आप जाहिर है हो सकता है कि इन ड्राइवर का ऐप यूज करते हो. अब इन ड्राइवर के ऐप में व्हाट एक्चुअली दिस ऐप डज, इट कनेक्ट्स सो मेनी ड्राइवर्स एंड सो मेनी पैसेंजर्स. लेकिन इनका अपना क्या है? फूड पांडा भी बिल्कुल, हाँ बिल्कुल इसी तरह की एग्जांपल है. ये फूड पांडा भी बेसिकली जाहिर है कि फूड पांडा डज नॉट cook food, they do not do chickens, they do not create food, but they have got like a lot of people working for them. इनके पास तो खैर इनके एम्प्लॉइज भी होते हैं कुछ जो कि डिलीवरीज कर रहे होते हैं, लेकिन ये कि जनरली दे बेसिकली आउटसोर्स द थिंग्स. तो रिड्यूस्ड ओवरहेड कॉस्ट एंड इंक्रीज्ड ऑपरेटिंग एफिशिएंसी. जाहिर है कि जब आपके पास आप इंटरनेट के थ्रू आप किसी को काम दे रहे हैं, उससे काम करवा रहे हैं. पाकिस्तान में बहुत सारे लोग हैं जो कि इंटरनेशनल ऑर्गेनाइजेशंस के लिए काम कर रहे हैं. इंडिया में तो बहुत ही ज़्यादा लोग हैं जो कि इंटरनेशनल ऑर्गेनाइजेशंस के लिए काम कर रहे हैं. उनके कॉल सेंटर्स हैं, उनके टेक्नोलॉजी सॉल्यूशंस हैं, उनके जो हैं वो अदर काइंड ऑफ स्ट्रक्चर्स हैं जिनके अंदर वो लोगों को परफॉर्म कर रहे हैं. तो दे आर ऑल कनेक्टेड विद द इंडियन पीपल और इंडियन subsidiaries through internet, through information technology. So they permits operations across great distances. अमेरिका में लोग बैठे हुए यहाँ पे काम ले रहे हैं और वो काम हो रहा है और वो काम चल रहा है, उनको सस्ता पड़ता है, यहाँ के लोगों को फायदा हो जाता है. तो there are a lot of things basically that are going on. डिसएडवांटेजेस बहुत ज़्यादा हैं इस सिस्टम के, इन द सेंस के कंट्रोल एंड कोऑर्डिनेशन प्रॉब्लम्स में अराइज फ्रॉम नेटवर्क कॉम्प्लेक्सिटी. आप कंट्रोल नहीं कर सकते हैं चीज़ों को, बहुत सारी चीज़ों को आप कंट्रोल नहीं कर सकते. जब आप एक एम्प्लॉई है जो कि आपसे डिस्टेंस पे बैठ के काम कर रहा है,
तो वो कितना इफेक्टिवली काम करता है, कितने घंटे काम करता है, आप उसको ऑब्जर्व नहीं कर सकते। आप जो है वो जो बहुत सारी चीज़ें हैं जो ऑब्जर्व नहीं कर सकती हैं, जिस तरह मिसाल के तौर पर अभी जब बांग्लादेश की एक फैक्ट्री में आग लगी, तो बांग्लादेश की फैक्ट्री जो गारमेंट्स फैक्ट्री थी, दैट वाज मैन्युफैक्चरिंग द प्रोडक्ट्स फॉर सम वेरी बिग नेम्स इन द यूके. So they basically got into trouble from their insurance companies, from their governments, from the human rights commissions, human rights organizations, that were you doing this? Like, say for example, why you didn't create any kind of good environment for the laborers. Like, say for example, वो जो एक आग लगी उनके यहाँ बांग्लादेश के कई फैक्ट्रियों में आग लगती है. One of the factories basically when that burned down, so basically like they were basically asked that why you didn't have got the fire exits, why you didn't have got the precautions and safety, or like why didn't you keep these safety and precautions in front of you. But they didn't have any control over it. Like these were being run by other people, and they basically like had got their own structures, so it gets very difficult for them to actually have a control over the things. Potential loss of control over outsourced activities, again the similar kind of a thing. Potential lack of loyalty among infrequently used contractors. If a contractor is changed every time, you have a new person like you're working with, you can't expect him to be loyal. You can't expect him to be very much like a kind of a person who is like is giving you 100%. Excessively aggressive outsourcing can be dangerous. It's very difficult for you to just give all the tasks to others, because in that way you can have trouble, like in the sense you might have a situation where you can like you don't have got any control whatsoever over the things basically that are happening.